Once upon a time, in another magical land filled with animals instead of people, a small mouse named June was slowly walking through the snow. She was bundled up against the cold, feeling cozy underneath layers of patterned wool and thick cotton. The sky above was bright and blue, and the bushes along the path looked like sleeping bears covered in small white blankets. And June wasn't alone on this walk. Alongside her, walking at an excited pace, was her talkative mouse friend Daisy. Daisy was a mouse who could be best described as consistently cheerful. She was currently speaking, unprompted, about her daily complaints, issues, and current passions. This was her great skill, as she was an expert at filling in the silence for hours on end. Normally, June enjoyed walks alone where she got to collect her thoughts and enjoy the quiet, but this wasn't a routine walk to the cheese shop. June was headed to visit her father's home in her hometown. It had been many years since she last saw him. There was a specific number, but June didn't like to dwell on that. When she was younger, she left home after a heated argument with her father. Both June and her father were stubborn, headstrong mice with lots of opinions and a weakness for conflict resolution. In addition, after her mother had passed, it had gotten harder and harder to talk without a peacekeeper. So an argument, which could have been routine, turned into a bigger and more serious one. Looking back, June didn't even remember what they fought over. Maybe it was one thing. Maybe it was lots of things, all stacked on top of one another, sort of like a mountain of packages threatening to collapse. And so, father and daughter didn't speak again. June left home and started a new life in a new town. In this town of Mintship, she opened up her own cafe selling cozy meals and baked treats. A dedicated and ingenious worker, she made her cafe into a popular destination, and when interviewed by the town newspaper, it was mentioned that she had no worries. Until one day, she saw a gentleman at her cafe who looked just like her father, and it made her heart feel strange. After that, many sleepless nights passed, all because she couldn't stop thinking of her father. Was he okay? What was he doing? Was he eating well? It was as though some force was compelling her to take action. I need to do something, June thought. So the decision was made. She sent a letter to her father with 5 words and a number written on it. Coming home on Sunday, the 20th. After she sent the letter, she knew she had to contact Daisy. She needed Daisy's talking skills to fill in the awkward spaces that would naturally occur on a first meeting, and Daisy accepted, happy to help her friend and also have time to talk. A win-win. So, this is why on the 20th of December, they had walked the long way to June's childhood home. It was the scenic route, but June couldn't remember focusing on anything along the way. As they approached the address, her eyes focused on the exterior, making mental notes of any changes it had gone through. There were a few differences here and there, like a new paint job to the porch and a glimpse of an unfamiliar curtain on a window, but it was mostly still the same. Giant lush trees around the house prevented any cold wind from passing through, and it was warmer as they got closer. She noticed that the door was open when they arrived, with her father standing awkwardly near the holiday decorations. Unconsciously, she smiled, and she stopped at the steps. The smile hadn't quite reached her eyes as she was still very nervous. So many complicated emotions bubbled up at the sight of him, older and grayer. Being a stoic man, her father patted her on the back in his regular clumsy fashion. Each pat was way too brief and with way too much force, but it was wonderfully familiar. She could see a bit of tears collect at the corner of his eyes, and the sight of them tugged at her heart strongly, making it hard for her to speak. "It's good to see you," he mumbled out. Seeing this, she let out a breath she didn't even realize she was holding. "He still loves me," she thought, and a warbled laugh escaped the small mouse's mouth as she pulled him and her friend in for a hug. It was the first long hug she had with him, and it felt amazing. After a brief moment, she let go, and he awkwardly ushered her into the house. Just like the outside, everything was still the same as she remembered. As Daisy sat on the couch, June followed her father into the kitchen. "Do you like fish?" he asked. She paused. He knew how to cook? He motioned to the kitchen, where he had been marinating some fish. It was a lovely pink color, with some leaves of bright red saffron on the top for some extra flavor. "I love fish," she replied. "I'm a professional chef now, June," he said, in a joking manner. And after a pause, he spoke again, face turned away from her, but still present. "I missed you," he said. June stood quietly in the kitchen, watching him in further disbelief. He continued, "You don't know how much I love you, June. Without you, I wouldn't be here." At these words, she was touched and incredibly weepy, but didn't dare let a tear fall. It was hard to let emotions run free. After that, not much was said, but the air did feel lighter when they sat down to eat the rosy salmon dinner, with Daisy filling in the spaces with her energetic voice. Words were hard sometimes, so they would talk slowly at first, by the fire, and with relaxed hearts. And a special thanks to my Raccoon Snacks patrons, Anna Gaylord, Brigitte van den Broek, Aglay, Kim Meyer, and S. Marie Carlson. Thank you so much.